Rick Horrow, Sloan MIT Analytic Conference. We've talked about that before. A lot of this is analytics, but a lot of it is sports, and of course they merge, and they merge in a lot of different contexts. We talk about stick and ball sports, but you can't think Boston, how about this for being trite, without thinking the Boston Marathon. But more important than that, you really can't think of sports and Boston Strong and all of the positives related to the Boston Marathon without thinking it. The CEO of the Boston Athletic Association and the Boston Marathon, Tom Grilk. Did I get it all right?
You get it all exactly right,
That's
as
great.
always.
Shameless plug, as always, thank you. Shameless plug, April 17, 2017, April 17, 2017, the running of the Boston Marathon. What year is this?
Number 121.
121, and you were making a comment just off the air that right down the hall you'll be giving out runners' numbers and identification a few weeks from now.
We will. The Boston Marathon Runners Expo takes place here, so a great large trade show where people can get things, but principally it's the place where all 30,000 runners come and pick up their numbers.
Tell us about the business, Tom. Obviously business show, business interest, business audience, so kind of give us a perspective of, I know John Hancock, I mean the whole idea of the major sponsors involved in this, but it's not just philanthropy, it is a big, solid business. So talk about the marathon first, then we'll talk about the BAA.
Well, the marathon is the world's oldest continuously run annual marathon, so it goes back to 1897, and it's grown from 18 people to now 30,000. And it depends not only on the runners who train so hard and come and run so hard, but also in order to provide us with the resources necessary to meet their needs, there need to be sponsors. In our case, we have sponsor relationships that are the envy of our industry and every other. John Hancock will be in their 32nd year this year. It's 30 years for Adidas. At that point, they're not sponsorships, they ripen into partnerships.
And they're effectively equity partnerships because these are your stable partners financially, but also relationship-wise going forward.
It's a fair analogy to make. There's not much that we do without consulting carefully with them, and vice versa in anything that they do pertaining to the marathon.
The marathon hasn't always been as positive as it is. I know there were years ago when it went on, let's say, harder times. The resurrection story to where it is today, tell that.
Well, the Boston Athletic Association was a thriving athletic enterprise in Boston with multiple facilities here in Boston and outside for shooting, for golf, for equestrian, for rowing, for many things. And with the advent of the Depression in the 1930s, that was all lost. And all that was left was the Boston Marathon and an indoor track meet that ended in 1969. So the Boston Marathon was done on a shoestring by really a couple of people. Will Cloney and Jock Semple and the BAA Board of Governors were about it. With the desire to have the quality of the marathon be what everyone wanted it to be, in 1986 the BAA went to John Hancock as a sponsor, the first sponsor, under the aegis of David D'Alessandro, whose wisdom in all this was legendary. And with that began not only an era of financial solvency and an ability to meet the needs of all of our runners and everyone else that we work with, but also a move into the professional era where elite runners came, significant prize money was paid, and the Boston Marathon stepped to another level.
So the metrics of all of this from your business perspective, give us a snapshot of how intertwined the BAA is now with the marathon. I know that it's a staple event, but the BAA is a year-round organization. There's a lot of different events that go on as well.
That's right. The mission of the Boston Athletic Association really hasn't changed since it was founded in 1887, which is the promotion of health and fitness. We do it in three areas. One is the conduct of running events that everyone knows about, the Boston Marathon, plus our 5K, 10K, half marathon, other events that we conduct. The second part is community service, to be of service to all of the constituencies that provide such magnificent support to us in good times and in the most horrible times. And that's been a lot of kids events of many kinds, and now ripening into something in which we work in what might be called underserved neighborhoods to get not only kids out moving in furtherance of the health and fitness mission, but also their families. So moms, dads, kids out there at, for example, a run over at the Dimmock Health Center, the largest health center in Boston, to get more people out moving. The third part is the development of elite high-performance athletes, which is where the BAA began, sending most of the first U.S. team to the revival of the Olympic Games in 1896. And we now have a stable of excellent athletes that we are helping to develop. So all of that goes on all year.
Let's talk about the elite piece, which in many ways is the face of the television piece, the sports piece as it goes forward. Last year at the same time, we were ready for an exciting Olympics in Rio. Now we're a year later. Can you assess the impact of the Olympic marathon on what you do long term? Not even the results, but what happens in a non-Olympic year, 3 out of every 4, and is there a different level of preparation, either higher for the Olympic year or lower for the others?
The level of preparation is the same. It is intense, and it is meant to be as respectful as it should be for the wants and desires of the people who come and run.
Right.
What's different in an Olympic year is that the Boston Marathon, generally being 3 or 4 months before the Olympic Games, we don't have runners who will run in the Olympics. There's not time for them to recover. So it provides an opportunity for some other runners who are not going to be in the Games to come and have a showcase all their own on the world stage.
So net, the elite running movement is enhanced every 4 years. Is there and a lot of the golf answers are the same today because it's affecting the schedule entirely. Yours has been a lot more stable for a number of years. But do you welcome the quadriennial? Do you say now we're back to normal after the last one, or what's?
It doesn't have enough of an impact on us for us really to prefer one over the other. In a non-Olympic year, it's nice to perhaps have somebody have a chance to win who wouldn't otherwise. But at the same time, there are so many magnificent high-performance runners around the world that many of them don't get into the Olympics because it's only 3 per country.
Right. Give us an idea of, everybody talks about public-private partnerships. City of Boston, State of Massachusetts, what is their level of participation in the marathon?
The level of participation is very high. We work certainly with the City of Boston to a very high degree. The mayor these days, Mayor Marty Walsh, is a big supporter of the race, out here all the time. The police commissioner has just run his 50th marathon, and he's run a whole bunch of Bostons. The fire commissioner just came back from, or not too long ago, from running the Chicago marathon. He'll be running New York this coming year. So we've got people in high places in public safety who are runners. But the public safety community here in Boston has always been a strong supporter with us, and that's true at the state level and at the other 7 cities and towns through which the race runs. There's a very high degree of coordination conducted at the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency in a bunker in Framingham, Massachusetts along the way. And the planning looks like something out of a military strategy movie. And there come together public safety officials from all the cities and towns, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and multiple federal agencies, all of whom pitch in to make sure that the race is both safe and fun, respectful of the tradition of so many years that it's a family day when people can come out and enjoy themselves.
The inevitable public safety, obviously the segue to Boston Strong. Second year, third year since
this will be the fourth.
The 4th year, which is an incredibly bad question to ask, but it does set the tone because it feels like we're on to, without disrespecting the memory, back to normal if there is such a thing. The whole Boston Strong, you've had years to now analyze. The interesting thing is the Mark Wahlberg Patriots Day, and it's reminded people as well. How do you approach the memory of that day on a yearly basis?
What the memory of that day gave us, both that day and the next week and the next month and the next year, was a very strong reminder of what has always been true, that people around here will live their lives the way they choose, no matter what anybody does to try to stop them. It goes back to 1776, and what we saw that day and thereafter continues. If anything, I think there's now a stronger sense among people that this is their race. I once did a TED talk, and both the title and the recurring theme were, in Boston, everyone owns the marathon. And I think David Ortiz was right when he got up and said, this is our freaking city.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and people really feel good about it, I guess, as far as taking ownership of the event. As it relates to doing your business and being philanthropic and raising dollars, has it given you more of certainly more of an intensity? Has it made the dollar commitment easier, harder? People now own the race even more than ever before, but they want to make sure that it sustains today and in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are able to enjoy good relations with our partners like John Hancock and Adidas and the many other sponsors with whom we work in order to keep things going at what we hope is the right level for everybody. On the charity side, since the number of charity slots is limited because most of the field goes to people who have qualified, well over 80%, what we have seen is that as people want to feel more and more part of Boston, they want to run. And if they can't run as a qualified runner, they want to run for a charity. And in some ways that's harder than being a qualified runner, because now if you want to run for a charity, you have to commit to raise at least $5,000. The average amount raised per charity entry last year exceeded $10,000. So if someone is going to be a charity runner, they have to go out and hit up everybody they ever knew for money to meet that goal, such that their friends, when they see them coming, grab for their wallets and run for the exit. The commitment of these charity runners is spectacular.
Spectacular, and I'm sure they approach it like everything else in Boston with the intensity and aplomb and commitment that makes this race very successful as well.
We see it from everybody involved in every way, from 30,000 runners to most of 10,000 volunteers to all of the public safety officials, and what is most noticeable to the runners, the hundreds of thousands of spectators who come out to cheer for and take care of their runners on their course, including out this window right behind us where the finish line is.
Interesting that it's right there, and of course your logo and the Adidas office and the Adidas store is right there, which is kind of interesting. The other piece of this is you personally, you know, it is, you could really tell your intensity and single-mindedness about this. What is it like to manage an event and a legacy like this? There is a tremendous responsibility. It's almost as if you are the owner of a public trust in a community, so don't screw it up.
We at the Boston Athletic Association, and I personally, feel precisely that way. But it is, for me, the privilege of a lifetime to have the opportunity to do this. When President Obama was here a few days after the bombing and our then Governor Patrick brought him over to say something, that was, I think, the first thing I said, that it is the privilege of a lifetime to do this, to be in the middle of a group of people who live here, who behave the way they do in the face of threat and crisis.
This community embraces its sports teams, but it also embraces the marathon. The idea of, now as a Dolphin fan, it's kind of hard for me to do this, but the idea that the Patriots are way above anybody else in the NFL, and the Red Sox run, and of course the Bruins and the Celtics, if they don't play well, everybody knows about it. But it seems like there is a metamorphosis that you all are all in the same boat, that everybody feels like these are our civic assets we need to protect.
That is surely true. Boston, as a population matter, is a lot smaller than some of the other big cities that have sports teams, that have big events like the Boston Marathon, so it brings a little more closely knit quality to the community. And so it's sort of easier for people to come together. They surely show up in times when it's fun. Once again, out on this street right behind us where the marathon will finish this year and every year, We also have become accustomed to duck boats going down there for the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots.
Bring on another set of duck boats. Are you running in the marathon?
I am not running in the marathon. The last time I ran the marathon was 1978, and the year after that I somewhat accidentally became the finish line announcer, which was much easier than running. But I was a just barely made it qualifier. In those days you had to run 2 hours and 50 minutes to qualify for the marathon, and I ran 2:49:03, so I made it by an eyelash. I wasn't good.
I think that if you wanted to, there is something probably equivalent to a sponsor's exemption that could allow you to run it if you wanted to right now.
I think if I did, I would be unable to face all of the other people who would like to run and don't know somebody.
Clearly. And I would make the judgment that this man is much more important where he is than running, even though I'm sure he would do very well anyway. Tom, thank you very much.
Delighted for the opportunity.
Really
thank you very much.
appreciate it.